This week's podcast is sponsored by Yamaha. Are you looking to upgrade your home cinema in time for the festive period? You can build your perfect surround sound system and claim up to £280 cashback on selected Yamaha products up to the 15th of January 2020. Visit europe.yamaha.com/cashback for all the details. That's europe.yamaha.com/cashback. Hello and welcome to the AVForums podcast for Monday the 9th of December. And joining me on this edition, it's a full house. We got Steve Withers.
I'm an overweight middle-aged man.
Kaz Harlow.
Mouldering intensity.
Ed Selley.
Is there a seatbelt?
And Mark Botwright.
Come look at my penis.
Right, I figured one of us was going to do that.
Yeah, you just knew it was going to be Mark. Right, welcome back. The podcast is back. Next week, it's our Christmas party podcast. So remember your party poppers, people.
Do I need to be even more drunk than usual?
You can be in whatever state you like, Ed.
Hooray! I'd like to hear you do one sober. I did the other day.
Don't.
It was really depressing.
You don't.
Yeah, it's boring as hell. No offence.
There is a reason in Vegas why we plied Ed with drink.
Yeah, it took us a couple of days to work it out. We suddenly realised that Ed was a lot more fun when he was pissed. So after that, we started encouraging him to drink at all opportunities.
You're just chronic enablers. This
for our own
water
sanity.
Tastes funny.
It bordered on bipolar. 1 minute you're miserable as sin, a couple of cans of lager, and suddenly he was the life and soul of the party.
Well,
Yeah.
yes, possibly.
You drove me a tub ice cream, Ed.
Yeah,
Right,
the funny
okay.
thing was that you filmed yourself eating that and sped up, and it looked hysterical.
The usual Christmas message, kind of drink awareness. I think mine is closer to that Irish advert. From
No, the thing is,
70s.
Ed is always aware when he's drunk and he's got a drink. So drink awareness.
Well, there's that. It's more like that Irish drink driving ad from the 70s. You know, be careful about that fifth pint. Simpler times. And deadlier ones, yeah.
Yeah, right. So like I say, next week's podcast is the final one of 2019. We'll go over our favourite things of the year. We're not going to do the decade. We're going to take Steve's advice on that one and do that next year. But we're not going to tell you when. We're just going to drop
We
it
can do
on
the best of the year, can't we?
That's what I said. We're going to do best of the year. So yeah, we'll do that next week. And so that's best TV, best films, kit that we've looked at, all that kind of thing.
So we've decided the next decade starts
sometime next year. We're not going to tell
ends...
anybody. We're just going to drop it on them.
Technically, the end of the decade is December the 31st, 2020. Technically.
Yes, correct.
So
I'm glad we're not doing best of the decade because I did try and come up with 10 films, and I'll tell you what, it's not been a great 10 years for cinema.
So we need this year to be good then.
We need 2020 to be a blinder.
on a point of pedantry, then someone born in say 1900 wasn't born in the 20th century.
No, they weren't. They were born the last year of the 19th century.
In the 1900s, but not the 20th century.
It's the last year of the 19th century. The year 2000 was a click over of the millennium, but it wasn't the first year of the 21st century. And this is a hill I am prepared to die on. Okay, can we be clear about this?
I am with Ed on this.
So yeah, it's a bit weird. I remember it used to annoy me as a child, but it's insofar as
it annoyed you as a child.
Yeah,
I used to love it
because my dad was insistent about it, and then annoyingly I realised he was right.
I love it when you were a kid. You start to come to you work out that you're in the 20th century, but it's 19 whatever, and you're thinking, hang on, okay, right, so we're 20th century. And then one day at school, in class, we were told to write an essay about 20th century farming, and one of the kids put up his arm and said, "What, we're supposed to write it in the future, are we?" And the guy looked at the teacher and said, "If I have to explain to you what century we're in, son, get out of the class." So we wrote the essay, and then the teacher read out this kid's essay where he talked about farmers swooping in on their hover tractors and cutting down crops with lasers.
When you say this kid, was
Yeah,
this
that's
a
what I was
friend?
thinking.
It was not me. It was not me.
Like you've got a story about a friend who got stuck in a sheep one time. Yeah,
I've got video evidence of that one.
I've been stuck in a sheep. That was me.
That's an occupational hazard in your part of the world.
Yeah. It's a rite of passage where I go.
Not the only passage involved either. So,
Yeah, good stuff. Right, so very quickly, Ed, what have you been up to?
I have today. I struggled to get out of bed, but I did eventually. I've done some work. I made some more soup. It's becoming a bit of a thing on Sundays. I popped up to where I used to live, went to their Christmas festival. Didn't feel very festive. Had a cup of coffee. Came back, and then I've watched Fight Club. I just noticed it was on Amazon Prime. I just felt the weirdest urge to. I haven't watched it in donkey's years, and yes, as you say, what a thing! And you sort of forget that there's lots of people who have gone on to do quite significant things. Just sort of like pottering around in the background. Really enjoyed it, and now I'm here doing the
like
podcast.
Jared Leto.
No, the one I was thinking of, and I'm doing the guy a disservice by not remembering his name.
He's one Hunter.
Yes, and he crops up in so many things, but I think that's one of the first things I recall seeing him in. So yeah, and obviously, who doesn't love Meatloaf, especially with enormous pendulous man tits?
It is a classic film, that it really is. Yeah.
So that's me. Let's be.
Good.
I shall be brief. That's what I've done.
Yeah. Even briefer, Kaz.
All things Christmas. So we've got a new tree. We've got a new tree for the kids. Decorated everything. I mean, the old tree went on by nothing, but I mean, the place is Christmasified. It looks amazing.
Okay, good stuff. Mark?
My landing light went out twice in a week.
That sounds like poltergeist action to me.
Yeah.
Well, it does. And then when I tried to replace it, the plastic that was holding it all together disintegrated into my hand. So,
Right, so it sounds like crap wiring, actually.
Yeah. On the plus side, I've just bought a new torch.
Ooh.
And it doubles as a lantern.
Instead of a landing light.
Yes. So for night
Just put it by your bed when you're going to go for a
toilet
wee.
trips, I go out. It genuinely, one of the few things that can still kind of instill that childlike sense of wonder is a ridiculously powerful torch that can just, it's like a scene from
The one
Sunshine.
you think you
It's
can
fantastic.
sort of signal other planets with.
Yeah,
I'm kind
exactly.
of with you on that. Yeah.
Yes, that's the highlight of my week, Phil.
Okay.
Oh, fair enough.
I mean, I have been Google searching how to get rid of AQI after Ed told me about it last week. The first results were for air quality index, so I added voice after that. And Google, I'm getting quite worried. It's a little bit kind of sinister. It says Google gives me how to get rid of an airy voice and then how to get rid of a gay voice. And that I find slightly worrying. And so I found out that it's because everyone calls it upspeak.
Right.
And so then I typed in how to get rid of upspeak. And before I'd finished typing in upspeak, the first suggestion is how to get rid of upset stomach and diarrhea. But I read it anyway.
I bet you more people are probably asking how they get rid of their diarrhea than they are their AQI. I mean,
I
Google
reckon the two go in hand in hand.
Well, I didn't
You
even
get
know what
upspeak with the
AQI
other.
was until last week.
No, actually. If you want to get rid of it, I suggest elocution lessons, which is what I had when I was a kid.
Fucking hell,
Did
what
you walk?
were you like
Did you walk
before?
around with books on your head and
It was the
learn
finishing school.
how to get in and out of the car with your knees together?
Three little maids from school, are we?
I did elocution lessons and public speaking as a child, believe it or not. And I won this competition called the Midsummer Set Festival. I was about, 7 or something.
Were you the only child there that wasn't going? "Arr!"
Well, that may have been an issue.
Sounds like the
And
worst.
I won it. God knows how. But I remember going to collect my award, and I had to walk up past all these hundreds of people up to the stage to collect it, and they were going, "Oh, isn't he tiny and young?" The following year,
It sounds like grooming, Steve. I'm sorry. No, I don't want to break it to you.
the following year, the pressure was on because I was the defending champion, and I got up to do my poetry recital, and I could remember the entire poem, but I couldn't remember what it was called. I had to stop and go to the judges. What's my poem called? And they went, "Oh, thank you." Well, obviously, I wasn't going to win, having forgotten the title of it.
It's like
Couldn't handle the pressure, so that's when I quit my
I used
public speaking
I
career.
I used to do public
defending
speaking as a
champion.
kid. I used to thoroughly enjoy public speaking as a kid. I didn't have to have elocution lessons because I'm just intrinsically posh, so it was fine. But I think it's well worth. It's possibly worth a look at. I don't know what the market is for adult men having elocution lessons, but I'm sure that if the market exists, it will be serviced somehow.
I've just
Well,
realised
elocution
I've just realised I'm the only working class one amongst us.
Anytime anyone actually self-describes themselves as working class, they're not.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
And you have experience of this?
Mate, I am so middle class it hurts. I mean, I
If you
tick
look at middle class dictionary, there's a picture of Ed next to it.
I tick every possible box. Every box. The only thing I haven't done is owned a Labrador. And
Do you
I
read
think
The Guardian?
Do I
That's definite. Oh, come on, middle class read The Guardian.
I occasionally, I'll potter through a Guardian article now and again. I enjoy Jay Rayner's restaurant reviews.
It's
but most-
annoyingly PC these days. It makes me. I mean, I read it every week, but it still makes me really angry.
Why
I
would
mostly
you do
buy
that?
it now for the TV guide.
I can't remember the last time I actually bought papers.
Would you steal them?
No, I occasionally read an article online. I mean, I had a
Oh, I see. I like having a physical paper.
I know you're old. I had a subscription to The Economist for quite a long time, which I enjoyed.
It's a really good read. It's a really good read that you.
So,
I used to
Is
get
any of
paper
this
every
making
week.
the edit?
No, I used to get paper every week and it had fish and chips in it. It was grand.
fair enough. Well,
Right.
did you read any of it after you'd eaten the chips?
No. Like we've established, I was down the pits. Yeah.
26 hours a day.
Yep. All that.
Like the canary.
Hill, both
Yeah.
directions.
All that jazz. You know the script. You know the script. Right. Who have I missed? Steve.
Was I did not much really. I'll tell you what I've been doing. I've been watching a lot of 80s horror films for some reason. I just found myself, I think because I was thinking about films of the decade and realising how crap the last 10 years have been, and then realising how I could easily rattle off 10, 20, 30, 40 classic films from the 80s. Off the top of my head, no problem. So I started watching a lot of 80s movies, up to and including Die Hard, which I saw you watched as well, Phil.
Oh yeah, I had to watch that.
It ain't Christmas until Hans Gruber gets dropped off the other side of the building.
Exactly.
But I was watching, not an 80s film, granted, but I was watching the remake of Dawn of the Dead, and I'd forgotten that they use Richard Cheese's cover of Down with the Sickness, which is really good. And I found myself listening to quite a lot of Richard Cheese recently.
Oh, I need to go and rediscover Richard Cheese. I haven't listened to it for a long
It's
time.
so funny. There's a bit where he's doing covers of Christmas songs. He gets to Last Christmas and Last 50, so he goes, no, stop. That's just too rubbish.
Yeah.
And then goes on to something else.
Yeah, class act. Right, so yeah, you know what I've been doing then, because obviously I have been watching films as well. Been to the cinema and also been
Banking that NX9, haven't you?
Yeah, it needs to go back next week. I feel
How
guilty.
many hours you put on that
Who
bolt?
wants to take a bet that when we record the final podcast of the year in 7 days' time, the projector has travelled precisely no inches from where it is now?
No, I'm starting to feel guilty now. I think I better.
Yeah, but you said this
better
last week. It's not going anywhere, and then it will be too late to move it because it's too close to Christmas and it's a high value object. Then you'll go to CES.
Then it'll wait for a postal strike.
We all know where this is going. We all know where this is going.
To answer your question, Steve, 103.
Not bad. That's not bad.
I did soak it for the first 50 though, so I just had it on repeat, one of those DTS discs on repeat. Put the hours on, which is what I do with all projectors really. So I've put about 50 hours. Actually, sitting watching films, about 50 hours on it. So I watched Die Hard. It was great. It was fantastic. Right, so that's what we've all been up to, living our AV-tastic lives. And as you can tell, we're at a certain age now where we take great pleasure in just sitting watching films. I'm sick of pixel peeping. I've been doing that all year, and I've actually enjoyed it this week, Steve, where I've done a couple of reviews. I've got the last TV's just gone on the stand today, so I got rid of the Samsung today, put the last LG on the stand, the B9, and I can relax now. Right, no more pixel peeping. I'm actually going to sit down and enjoy some content and actually sit and watch stuff. And sit and watch stuff that I've been putting off for such a long time. Because when you're reviewing stuff, you have to watch the same things over and over or listen to the same things over and over. So I'm hungry for new content.
The thing is that you've got to be careful with that. One of the reasons I struggled to get up this morning is I have now installed a hi-fi system upstairs in my bedroom, which is comprised of equipment that isn't going to change. It doesn't have to chop in and out, and that I actually really like. And because of that, I turned it on this morning and didn't go anywhere for 90 odd minutes. I just lay there listening to music. So you've got to be careful with that. It instills laziness. Got to keep.
Yeah, but it's Christmas. I'm actually taking a Christmas holiday this year as well. I've never taken a Christmas. I've only ever taken Christmas Day and Boxing Day, really. But no, I am finished on the 19th, and I am not back till CES.
I don't stop working over Christmas. I just do more work drunk.
Your best option.
I think that's probably a fair assessment. I keep writing. It just needs to be checked more thoroughly the day after I've written it. It's fine. It's fine. It's if you've noticed a downturn in my work that you read in January, just keep it to yourself. It's fine.
Right, that's what we've all been up to. Bit of sad news before we move on to competitions. And it was really sad news. Ken Ishiwata. I've met Ken a few times. I know Steve has as well, because we've been out to the D&M conferences for many, many years. And it was always a highlight to sit in one of these demos.
With these massively towed-in speakers.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that, like I do with other people in the industry, where I maybe don't agree with their point of view, but I'll sit there and I'll respect their point of view and listen to what they have to say. But I have to say about Ken, sometimes he would start on something and I'd be, I can see where this is going. I'm not sure I agree with this, but by the time we finished his demo, he's at least got me questioning myself, and actually going out and listening to what he's trying to point out. And some of the product development he's done over the years, I don't think we'll see any one individual ever do that again, just with the way the whole industry now is, and how certain massive corporations own just about everything these days. I don't think we're going to see that ever again, one person having that kind of influence over a brand. And for Marantz, he was their brand ambassador. Memories, Ed?
Yeah, I actually spent a reasonable amount of time on and off doing quite a few shows and events with him, because when I started working for Mordant Short, they were distributed by Marantz, and it has to be said, at the time, Marantz obviously had a full range of products. Mordant Short very much didn't. They only had affordable loudspeakers, and there was all manner of snipey emails going backwards and forwards from various senior members of both organisations. One organisation wanting such and such a thing for demonstration, and it not being available, and so on and so forth. And I have to be honest, Ken never ever got involved in any of that, and he would quite happily take whatever turned up for demonstration or what people had finished arguing about and decided to do, and he just unfailingly got on with it, and more crucially, always, generally speaking, made it sound excellent. And he was a genuinely lovely human being. He sort of, if you sort of got the impression, with the very distinctive wardrobe and the so on and so forth, that he was, that there was an element of pretension, but there really, really wasn't. He just did what he wanted to do, but there was no sort of artifice to that, and he really did know an awful lot about pretty much every facet of stereo and multi-channel audio. He was, he never considered that he knew it all. He continued to learn, to push, to try different things, and so on and so forth. And he is. In terms of the legacy he leaves, I mean, he was always a bit uneasy with the amount that his name was used on certain products and so on and so forth. But nevertheless, some of the things that do bear his name are absolutely iconic, and some of the things that don't bear his name and that he was quite heavily involved in are, in their own way, no less special. So yes, it's a hell of a body of work. And if you are, shopping around, wanting to put an affordable 2-channel system together, the CD player is possibly a bit long in the tooth in terms of the mechanics and so on and so forth. But all of the KI SIG affordable amps, the 66 KI, 6010 KI, and the 7200 KI, they're all available for sensible money, and they're all still great. And that's a fair old legacy. They ignoring the more expensive stuff, if you pick up one of those amplifiers, they are just joyous to listen to. And what better way to remember the man? It's a shame, and I think some of the circumstances of how he came to leave Marantz didn't strike me as entirely ideal. But that's a conversation for another time. It's a loss to the industry, and I was sad on the day, and I hope he. I just hope that I hope that there's another couple of people waiting in the wings. As Phil says, the industry's changed, but there's still scope for individuals to make a difference, and we could all stand to learn from him in that one.
Steve?
Yeah, no, I just agree with everything Ed just said, to be honest. I met him at quite a few of the Lennon and Marantz trips. He was always an interesting guy to talk to, always very laid back, an interesting dresser, likes his scarves, and knew a hell of a lot about audio, and so talking to him was always interesting. And I've had a few drinks with him over the years, a chat in the evenings after some of the events. And it was the shock of it really, because he was only up, on awards a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And he looked in fine fettle, and so that was a real shock.
Can I also just one last addendum? As well as hi-fi, he did love his cars, and my word, that man could drive, and he was fearless. I was taken for a quick drive by him in the Netherlands, which those of you will know does not have de-restricted motorways, but that wasn't a big part of Ken's line of interest. So full on Millennium Falcon moment from him there, which was good. So
At least you didn't start crying, did you?
Well, no, I didn't. Only one person in the hi-fi industry I've been a passenger for, and I've said, you've got to slow down or I'm going to soil your upholstery, and that's not Ken Ishiwata. So yeah, all good. They've retired, that person, but they're still alive, so I'm not going to do anything to say who they are. So yes, all good.
Yeah.
It did occur to me that I've got a PM66 Ki somewhere in my parents' house. I've no idea where, but I know I never sold it.
Okay, moving on. It is now time for the competitions, and Kaz is going to take us through them.
Right, so current competitions. You can win a Christmas 4K Blu-ray action bundle from Lionsgate. That includes the entire John Wick trilogy, Expendables 1 and 2, Anna, and the new Hellboy. That closes 17th of December. You can win a copy of War of the Worlds on DVD, which closes also on the 17th of December. You can win a copy of A Star Is Born VIP Pass Edition. That's got both cuts of the movie and the CD soundtrack. On Blu-ray, that's 17th of December. Win a Christmas Steelbook Blu-ray bundle from Lionsgate. That's Sicario, Cabin in the Woods, The New Hellboy again, Valerian City of 1,000 Planets, and Mechanic Resurrection. That closes 18th of December. You can win a 55-inch Hisense 4K HDR Smart Roku TV worth £479. That closes 10th of January. And there are also a couple more competitions that are landing by the time this podcast goes live, including one for the Blu-ray release of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So that should be pretty popular. Lots more competitions are open or being added daily, so head over to avforums.com/competitions to enter even more. All competitions open to eligible AV Forums members resident in the UK. And in previous competition winners, Google and 1960 won Werewolf, Chris B won Annabelle Comes Home, Leafy won Der Golem, Stecker won Criterion's November titles, which include The Palm Beach Story and Moonrise Kingdom. Arrowmaker got The African Queen, and Donnie won Monty Python Season 1.
Okay, congratulations to our competition winners, and we'll be back in a sec with hardware. Moving on to hardware, and back in November on the 19th, Philips held a special AV Forums event at Dolby HQ in Soho Square in London, where they showed off their new 2019 OLED TVs to the AV Forums readers that went along, as well as special demos. And to discuss what happened at the event, and if it was a success, we are being joined by Danny Tack from Philips. Hi, Danny.
Good afternoon, Phil, and the audience.
Well, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast. We held this event, it's a few weeks ago now, so you've had time to sit and think about the results of it, what members thought of your demos. So what was the reason for holding your event at Dolby this year?
Well, as most listeners know, we have done previous 2 OLED shootouts, PQ shootouts in the past, but we wanted to do something different now. And as we have introduced Dolby Vision in our TVs in this year's range, it looked like a nice, perfect opportunity to do something around Dolby Vision. And well, if you do something with Dolby Vision, then what better place can you have than the Dolby Studio?
Exactly. So what was it that you were trying to show our members with the new OLED TVs? So Dolby Vision was one part of it, but obviously the other part is your picture processing, correct?
Correct. Like you say, Dolby Vision was one part of it, and one of the sessions in the Dolby studios was that our new OLED TV with Dolby Vision was put side by side a Dolby reference monitor. And we showed like 2 different clips on that, and it was very nice to hear from the audience that our OLED TV with Dolby Vision was very close to the Dolby reference monitor, knowing that that monitor is not for sale, but is a very expensive device, and that our consumer product could compete with that. But besides that, doing some specials on Dolby Vision. I also wanted to touch base again with the people on P5 picture processing. Before, in the OLED PQ shootouts, I was not able to go for a large extension on explaining what P5 was doing, because we wanted to keep the shootouts in the past quite unbiased. This time I took my chances, and I have been showing to the audience the comparison of the movie mode versus the vivid mode, knowing that movie mode is without any P5 picture processing, and vivid mode is with our superb P5 picture quality engine working optimally. And again, the audience looking to that one, knowing that they're not very fond of vivid picture, simply because of the name, because they said, once I showed them the comparison side by side, movie mode and vivid mode, they liked it very much. They said, we don't like the name, but we see there is an added value on looking to content with P5 on.
I mean, obviously, directors and creators, they take a lot of time to put their work together. So why do you feel that you need to add picture processing to what is basically the director's intent? What is it that you think is wrong with that content, in your opinion?
Well, especially I don't like the judder, which is in the movies, because also I think my feeling is that when you compare cinema to TV, there is quite a difference there. We know, for instance, people like to have pinch-sharp pictures. That's what we offer them on our TVs. But by making the picture pinch-sharp, the judder, which is in many scenes in movies, is then also very much apparent there. While when you look at in the cinema to the big screen, you see that the judder is sometimes, although the screen is bigger, less obvious, because there is a lot of blur through the camera. What the director intends, he blurs and therefore hides a bit the judder, which is anyhow there. When we with our TVs are making pictures pinch sharp, then this judder becomes more visible, and then it's good to have a solution for that, and that is our perfect natural motion, which can make it fully fluent and razor sharp. And this is the biggest hurdle, I think, within the movie content. Besides that, our P5 is also capable of making, like already mentioned, making it sharper but more colorful. So for daylight viewing, it comes very much in handy to have this number of picture processing technologies on top of your signal, which the director intended, as the living room environment can trigger such technologies. But there is another feature that P5 is also delivering, and that's called perfect natural reality. It converts real-time all your SDR sources to the HDR look and feel. And without P5, so we're looking to the TV in movie mode, like the director intended, you are not getting this beautiful feature. And as we all know, HDR makes a lot of sense, adds a lot of value to the picture quality. We are able to do that real time, converting SDR to HDR, and that you only get when you have your P5 on.
So this is the third generation of P5, so what are the advantages of this latest generation?
We do 3 improvements on each kind of source, 3 on SDR sources and 3 on HDR sources. On SDR, we're going to reduce again the noise, so making the picture cleaner when it comes to a bad source quality, making it cleaner and sharper at the same time. That's quite technology advanced, as it's easy to reduce noise but by reducing your sharpness. But keeping the both high, you need to have quite intelligent technology behind that. But we can achieve this with the third generation. Secondly, the sharpness individual is again improved because of the improved detail enhancer, and it creates more natural looking sharpness. So it's not sharpness where you overdo with undershoots and overshoots, but really fine 4K resolution sharpness. And then the last one, the third one on SDR sources is on PNR, the perfect natural reality feature we introduced last year. This year, we're now having a perfect match between the luminance signal and the chrominance signal. With the first generation PNR, we lost on certain scenes, on dark scenes, a little bit of touch in the color. Skin tones could become a bit grayish. Now that is all gone because of the perfect match between luminance and chrominance. And you have very bright and colorful pictures in PNR, just what HDR needs. On the real HDR source, we also have 3 improvements. Basically, those improvements were triggered from reviews like you filled it on us, and you told us what improvements we could still make. So one of them was that we were crunching a bit the details in dark areas. That is gone now, so no crashing of details anymore. We have still beautiful bright dark scenes, but all the details there are visible. No color clipping. Second one is no color clipping in bright scenes. So all the color which is inside the HDR picture is shown as it is in the signal. It's shown on your screen. And the last one, a very difficult one, is that when it comes to very low resolution zone sources again, you can have some banding of color zones when there are small color nuances. We call it posterization, and that posterization is now also taken care of and has now very smooth transients over those small color nuances.
And I've got to say, that's one of the first things I picked up on when I reviewed the 2019 TVs. You definitely have made improvements there, so yeah, absolutely spot on. Now let's go to Dolby Vision, and some of our listeners might be surprised to hear that Dolby Vision Bright Mode on a Philips TV is not just brighter, it actually has P5 processing applied to it. So unlike the ISF modes where you can flick between day and night and the only difference is the luminance, you've actually added processing to the Dolby Vision Bright Mode. So first of all, is that approved by Dolby? And second of all, what is it that you're actually doing in terms of processing?
Yes, this is fully approved by Dolby, only for the bright mode. So we also agreed with Dolby not to touch anything on the dark mode. So that one is still like the director intended. But on the bright mode, we agreed on doing certain elements of our P5 engine, not all of them. We are doing 3 of the 5. So we're doing source perfection, like noise reduction or impact artifact reduction, if that would be necessary for the source. We do sharpness enhancement in a sophisticated and natural high resolution way, and motion interpolation. We don't touch color and contrast, as that is part of the tone mapping, and this is something that also the biggest thing where the director intent taste is in, and that we leave untouched. But the 3 I mentioned, source perfection, sharpness enhancement, and motion interpolation, are 3 benefits from P5 you get in Dolby Vision Bright Mode.
So you had your demonstrations, you were able to show everything that you wanted to show, and especially your demonstration with your Vivid mode against as the director intended in terms of cinema. So what was it that you were hoping the AVForums members would take away from your demonstration and the evening at Dolby?
Now, exactly what happened, and what I think already said in the beginning of this call, that people would love our Vivid picture. Other people, including you, Phil, and some around, made me a bit afraid that this audience would not accept the P5 Vivid picture, but on the contrary, as soon as I started up the P5 Vivid Picture, also people said, "Wow, this is amazing. This is beautiful. This is better." But what is wrong is you gave it the wrong name. We're all afraid of going to a Vivid Picture because of the negative gloom which is around the name. But because we are doing P5 picture processing, and I knew this, that we're doing it in a very balanced way. So we're equally improving sharpness, not overdoing, but sharpness, color, contrast, in a balanced way. I think that is what the audience liked very much on our picture.
Obviously, there's going to be lots of people listening to the podcast that weren't able to make it along to the event. So for those people who are listening at the minute, what is your message to them in terms of your TVs and the P5 processor?
Well, like I was asking from the people at the event, I would ask the listeners to, if they have a Philips TV, put it in vivid mode. All our OLED TVs have the most advanced P5 picture processing. Look in vivid mode, experience a bit on that one, I think they will come to the conclusion that it gives a better picture. Maybe some of them will say, yeah, okay, but this is a bit too much. Like in the audience also during the event, there was somebody said, there's nothing wrong with your vivid picture except for the name, which I already mentioned, and there's maybe a little bit too much color in. Well, all the P5 areas have individual adjustments, so there's always something to down tune a little bit if you would say that one is too much. There's also inside our TVs, of course, the predefined smart modes. Besides the Vivid, there is the natural one where everything around P5 runs at a lower scale, I would say like a medium minimum level, and maybe that's then one to experience. But I would ask the audience, have a look to our Philips Vivid mode or natural mode, because that are the ones with P5 processing, and I'm sure you will never want to look to something else again.
That's quite the challenge, so we look forward to reading the comments of what people think of that once they have a chance to look at Philips OLEDs. Now, let's move it away slightly from the event. I just, while we got you on the call, Danny, I just want to ask you a few questions as we're coming up to that time of the year where we have CES, lots of product launches, and of course Philips have their own event later in January next year where you're going to launch a lot of new product. I just wanted to ask you, in terms of OLED, has it reached its peak in terms of the technology, or do you see developments coming in over the next year or so, maybe in terms of getting brighter and maybe performing a little better with HDR content? Where do you think OLED is at the moment?
Yeah, I think on the short term, we can expect more peak brightness. Not full white increase, that's quite difficult, but peak brightness, I already saw roadmaps from our supplier indicating that an additional 10 to 20% is coming, which of course we will immediately benefit in better HDR performance from. Apart from that, we're also working on the weaknesses of OLED being the burn-in, and also trying to make it more robust on that side.
And when it comes to screen sizes, this has been bandied around a little while now. The entry point is 55 inches, and for European homes, that's still maybe just a tad too big. Do you see OLED coming in at smaller sizes, or do you think that 55 is the sweet spot to start at?
No, there's going to come in the market next year, smaller than 55, 48 inch will come.
Excellent, good stuff. Right, so 4K HDR. Is this the pinnacle of TV technology, or does 8K have a place? I know that it's one of these subjects at the minute that is dividing opinion. Where do you stand, Danny? Should we be concentrating on 4K, or will 8K come along in the near future?
Well, if you look to from an innovation point of view, the real new stuff in TV will obviously be 8K resolution. If you ask me, will it be such a hype as 4K? I don't think so. I was very amazed that 4K went so fast and so deep down in the range. Also by, let's say, industry push, because even 4K does not have a lot of content yet coming into the living room. So for 8K, that will be the same. 8K source wise, there will hardly be anything. Now that should not prevent us from bringing 8K, because we were also dealing when we were launching 4K displays with upscaling technologies, giving people a better performance from their Full HD on 4K. So the same thing will happen now, that we with picture quality technology with upscaling will do the same from Full HD to 8K or from 4K to 8K. Besides that, I do see that, for instance, the first kind of sources that will match with 8K will most probably be gaming. And that touches a bit also, gaming is very good, is maybe the most good source to do, because there is one more struggle with 8K compared to 4K, and that is screen size, where you were asking in OLED, are we going lower in screen size? Well, in 8K, it's the opposite. To get the benefit from 8K, you have to go bigger in screen size. Now, to have like a real benefit from where you are sitting in your living room at your position today, if you stay there, you will need to go minimum to like 70 plus, 77, 88 inch screen sizes to have a real benefit from your 8K product. Now, these big screen sizes will create an extra hurdle, because living rooms are as they are, and sleezing in a bigger screen will not be so obvious to do. But then again, coming back to gaming, where you're sitting with your nose on the screen, here again, the 8K benefit you can get quicker the benefit from. So if you ask me, is 8K going to go as fast as 4K? I don't believe so. But will it give improvements in the future? I think it will, for less use cases than with 4K, but definitely there will be use cases that benefit from 8K.
And I suppose you're quite well adapted there with your P5 in terms of upscaling and so on. You should be able to manage that in terms of content with an 8K screen quite easily, Danny.
Well, you've seen at IFA my sneak preview on 8K. At that moment, I was just showing the real 8K source. I had a first upscaling running, the existing upscaling from the P5 third generation, but we are indeed working on a new generation upscaling, especially for 8K sources, and we will take our good performance and our differentiated performance we have per today into the 8K area, and I'm confident that we can do a better job than others there.
So like I hinted at, you have your annual launch event coming up in January in Amsterdam again. Can you give us any hints as to what might be coming along, Danny?
I'm afraid, Phil, I will say the same answer as last year.
You're going to plead the fifth.
We will show amazing stuff there. I'm pretty busy now with preparing that event. I can tell you we will show beautiful stuff, but if I now tell what, then maybe you will not come over anymore and you will start writing on it. I give you actually also the opportunity of writing to your readers what you have seen there. Probably when they hear it from you, they will even like that more than if I would now reveal what we will see there.
And are we going to see another name for Vivid Mode?
Well, as this was quite new, and changes in software have to be always carefully managed, and also now I do agree fully with the name that the naming is wrong, but brainstorming on a new name and then bringing it into software might be a bit too early to show it in January, but this is definitely something we're going to work.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for spending the time with us today on the podcast, Danny, and all the best for Christmas and the New Year, and we'll speak to you in January.
Okay, and Merry Christmas to you and to all the listeners.
Okay, so thanks to Danny for his time and that interview. And like I say, the video of the event and the write-up is on the homepage, still there if you want to go and have a look at that and look at the things that the forum members were demoed. And it was a fantastic experience. So thanks again to Philips and Dolby for that. Right, moving on. We're going to quickly go through a couple of reviews because obviously these reviews are going to get published. So we're not going to go through them in mega detail. But a couple of very interesting amplifier reviews and a processor as well. So Steve, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, the Focal Astral 16. Now, Ed, quickly remind me, was it Focal that has a safe full of enough nicotine to poison half of Paris?
Yes,
Or
but
was
is
that
this the same Focal?
Yeah, as in the Focal that makes speakers.
Okay, well, I didn't realise that they were enabling.
No, they're
but
not.
yes.
They're not, because that's what I'm about to get onto. Yeah,
Oh, right, fine, yes.
Although
No,
Focal have their corporate thumbs in a number of different pies,
This is not them.
this is a rebadged product. So this is essentially the Storm Audio ISP 3D.16 Elite.
Snappy.
Yeah, I think the Astral 16 sounds a lot better as a name. And it's been rebadged by Focal and also Bryston. Bryston have got a processor that is essentially just the Storm Audio processor, and is again identical to the Astral 16. The difference between the Astral 16 has amplification built in as well. So it's a 16-channel processor with 12 digital channels of digital amplification built in. And it's £20,000. So it's not cheap, although it is very good.
Well, that's all right then.
It's an excellent amplifier and processor. It does DTS-X, Auro 3D, and Dolby Atmos, of course. It's largely dominated by HDMI connections at the rear, although I mean this is a couple of years old now, this amplifier / processor. So there's no HDMI 2.1, it's HDMI 2.0, but there is EARC support on one of the connections, and it does pass HDR10 Plus and Dolby Vision and hybrid log gamma and normal HDR10 as well, of course. So quite well specified in that sense. The way it works is it's got 12 channels, but you can allocate them how you wish. Plus, there's also 4 more channels, and those are output via balanced XLRs. So, it's very flexible in terms of setup. It has Dirac Live built in, so you can obviously EQ the room nicely. It comes with a microphone, all the usual things that you associate with Dirac. And it's a really well put together. I must admit, I liked it a lot because I thought it looked cool. I mean, it looks, it's quite industrial in terms of its design, but it looks like a high-end AV processor / amplifier. The digital amplification is excellent, very powerful. No trouble driving my system at all.
But is it noisy, Steve?
Noisy as in fans at the back?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. If you look at the back picture in the review when it's up, you'll see there's 3 massive fans. It is not quiet, but it's not designed to be. I mean, this is aimed at the custom install
It's supposed
market.
To be in a 19-inch
equipment room
in another room. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So yes, it is a bit noisy, but that shouldn't be an issue given the kind of installations it's aimed at. Obviously, if you're sticking it in, I didn't really hear it most of the time. It was down at the bottom of the back of my room. When you're watching a film, you couldn't hear it. But the fans, there are fans. There are 3 of them, in fact, and they aren't quiet. So that's one thing to bear in mind. But clearly, at $20,000, this isn't aimed at most people anyway. But yeah, it's a well designed, well put together, great sounding processor and amplifier. Does everything you could want. Incredibly flexible in terms of setup, and if you've got the budget, take a look at it.
So how does this stand up to something, you said it's like Storm Audio, who they also had a bit of input with Datasat's processors?
Yeah, it's not dissimilar from the data. Well, I was trying to think what Datasat, that was a processor rather than an amplifier. So if you're looking at comparisons in this price range, you're looking at really the Datasat, what have they got at the moment? Because is it the LS10? Is that what it's called?
LS10. You also have the RS20i, which is the
Is that still
high-end
going?
I believe so. But
I was loath to mention Datasat when I was doing alternatives in the review because I wasn't quite sure what's going on with Datasat. But I've recently reviewed in the last year or so 2 alternatives that are currently available and in similar price points. So there was the Accurus ACT4 which is a processor. You have to buy amplification separately. It's only a processor. Doesn't do Auro 3D, but that's not exactly a massive loss. It's restricted to 13.1 channels. That's 12,300 quid. But doesn't have auto EQ built in or anything like that. I've got to say, I don't think that's particularly good value for what you're getting. However, the other alternative is Trinnov Audio's Altitude 16. That's 13 grand. And if I was going to get a processor, that's what I'd buy. I think in terms of I mean, whilst the Astral 16 is impressive in terms of its room EQ with Dirac and its flexibility in terms of setup, the Altitude 16 will knock it into a cocked hat. It's just unbelievable what you can do with that system. And the microphone it comes with and all that sort of is on a whole nother level. And I've got to say that for my money, the Altitude 16, or even if you can afford it, the 32, is just in another world in terms of its processing and room EQ.
Okay.
And it's 13 grand, which is a lot of money, but isn't 20.
Yeah. Okay. So that review will be up later this week. So if you're interested in your high-end audio, and who isn't, we can all dream. We all like to know what's available should our lottery numbers come up, and we finally get to spec that all important custom built cinema room. It's an interesting product, and I haven't read the review yet, but I will have a good read through it before it goes up. So that should be up later this week. And Ed's been looking at a very different amplifier.
Yes, I have, because unlike Steve, I'm a man of the people. So I've been looking at the snappily named Edge A2-300 from XTZ. Is it XTZ, XTZ? I don't know. This is an interesting one. They contacted us. They contacted Phil, who in turn effortlessly delegated it to yours truly to have a look at. And I remember looking at the email chain and going, well, that looks a bit niche. But, I do what I'm told. I'll do what I'm told when people pay me. It's pretty simple. The thing is, having spent some time with it, it's not niche at all. And the reason for that is if you've been reading Phil's TV reviews and listening to his comments on the podcast, a lot of the tellies he's looked at, they essentially have the opportunity to use a power amp directly connected to them, as they have a pre-out or can be made to use an existing output as a pre-out via the back of them. And this little amplifier is £400. As the name suggests, it will deposit no less than 300 watts out the back of it, admittedly into 4 ohms, and admittedly at more distortion than I'd like. But if you work on the principle that it will do 300 under those circumstances, you can safely work to the principle that there's not a lot under £1,000 that it won't quite happily drive at any level you see fit. If you are looking at various options to boost the sound of these new televisions, you can attach one of these little amplifiers directly, then choose speakers to suit, decor, size, you go nuts, it'll drive them. And it's a slightly left field, but fascinating soundbar alternative. And the good news is it's very good. Is it perfect? No. But it's £400. So when I say I think it's quite good value, that may or may not carry more weight than a product which costs 20 grand. Just putting it out there. The full review will be up. If you've got any questions, please, that the review doesn't cover, please feel free to ask. The only thing I wasn't able to do, because I don't have a wall of tellies like Phil does, like a sort of pound shop version of the Architect in the Matrix Reloaded, I can't test it via a television pre-out because my B7 won't do that. So I'm afraid I've had to muddle through connecting it to other things to act as a preamp. But nevertheless, I think the findings are valid. It's a very interesting little product, and it's not niche at all. I mean, obviously, Steve's just pointed out that this all singing or dancing processor, to get the maximum number of channels, you're still looking at adding an external power amp, and at a much more terrestrial level, many of the AV receivers that we've looked at, to get the full number of height channels and so on and so forth, you need to attach an additional amplifier to it. This is an absolutely barnstorming choice for that, because it runs cool, it's efficient, and it will drive anything. So if you are in the market for that sort of thing, it's a review I think you should read. I mean, I think you should read all of my stuff. But nevertheless, I think it's a very, very interesting product. And something that has a lot more use than its specification might initially suggest.
Okay, good stuff. So, like I say, those reviews will be up at some point this week, so keep an eye on the homepage for those. That's it for hardware. We'll be back in a sec with movies. So, kicking off movies, we're going to start with a review. Normally, what we have said is we've got to do spoiler reviews going forward, but this one, we're not going to do any spoilers for this one because we saw preview screenings at the weekend. So, it was at the cinema on the 7th and 8th this past weekend. Myself and Kaz have been to see it. Steve, did you go?
No, I didn't.
Right, okay. Anybody else been to see it?
No, I mean, I say I've been to the cinema within the last calendar month. That's not...
All right, so that's you for the next year, at least.
No, I'll probably go early next year, I suspect. Oh, no, I'm off to see Star Wars.
We're coming on to that. So anyway, Jumanji, the next level. So myself and Kaz have at least seen this. The first movie was a big surprise, for me anyway, because we landed in Vegas and we wanted to go and see the Dolby Cinema. But the evening we landed, it was still showing The Last Jedi, and Steve was not going anywhere near that screening, were you, Steve? So we decided to wait and see what else was coming on the Dolby screen, and it was Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle, and it was like, oh well, I suppose it's got The Rock in it. It can't be that bad, and it actually turned out to be a fantastic film, didn't it, Steve?
It was an absolute treat. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
I thought I was going to fall asleep because obviously Dolby Cinema, you have the leather recliners, and still a bit
jet lag.
Still a bit jet lagged, and I thought, I'm going to fall asleep here. Not with that sound system, I wasn't.
No. Not when those drums start drumming.
No. So I think the first film was a bit of a surprise, really. It was far better than I think anybody expected it to be. It was very well played. It was a nice twist on Jumanji in terms of the computer game and disappearing into the game. The fact that if you get stuck in there, the passage of time was different to the passage of time, and there was all sorts of nice little things in there, which made it a really nice family movie. But at the same time, it was quite adult in its humour. The Rock was fantastic, as was Kevin Hart. I thought he was really good. So we get them all back for this one, plus two new characters.
I think Jack Black stole the film, though.
Jack Black, yeah, sorry. Yes. So we get two new characters this time around. Kaz wasn't sure how this was going to play out, but I guess it needed something fresh to come with. Obviously, the title gives it away, the next level, so it's not the same. It's the same game, but it's not the same level as we had last time. Really quite enjoyable.
I thought it was fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I like you guys. I came into Jumanji quite behind the curve. I didn't see it at the cinema. I saw it on 4K, and I thought, why didn't I see this at the cinema? And it was a whole lot of fun. And the idea of kids turning into, the idea of this known group of actors playing kids, essentially, was a very funny gambit to go with. And I love what they've done with the sequel, because rather than just keep it exactly the same, they've mixed things up a little bit, which is really nice. They've introduced new characters, familiar faces, and they've done, I put it in the review, they've done a bit of a face-off, which is get kind of known actors to play other known actors. And I think that works superbly well.
That, for me, was what made the film. Yeah. It was the fact that, Danny DeVito's in this, but actually he's not in this because it's somebody else playing him, but it's played so well that you forget that. And you just buy into it. Whereas in the first film, it was more, because we didn't know who the kids were, it was more mannerisms and that kind of thing, and obviously young language coming out older mouths and that, and mixing genders and so on. Whereas this time, two of these new characters are really well-known actors that a lot of people will have seen a lot of their work, and to have other actors not just impersonate them but become them was really, really well done, and really surprised me at how well done it was.
I think it'll definitely work for the 30 plus, maybe even 40 plus moviegoers, actually, because if you know Danny DeVito and Danny Glover inside out, watching this movie is a real hoot. You could close your eyes and you feel like you're just watching these two people. And
it's good that they're doing that though separately. I mean, let's face it, all the way through children's television, computer gaming, all the rest of it, anything which doesn't have parents wanting to, sort of self-dose themselves to the eyeballs on whatever is lying around is always an advantage. So things that are working at multiple levels, if you're taking the kids for something in the holidays, that's always going to be a bit of a win, surely.
It's very clever. It's really well done. So,
and there's lots of adult humour in there as well, even though it's a 12A. A lot of it goes over the kids' heads. But there is some really, really nice humour in there as well. And the cast are all fantastic. The effects are brilliant. And it's played for laughs, and it's played with its tongue very firmly in its cheek, and I absolutely adored it. I put up with it being a busy Saturday morning in the Metro Centre before Christmas, where the place absolutely packed out, and the screening was packed out, and there was kids continue asking questions of the parents and stuff through it, and I managed to block all that out because it was really, really good fun.
Yeah, and I wasn't even down to review it. I did want to see it, but I wasn't even down to go and cover it to review. And the idea of going to see it on Saturday morning didn't really particularly appeal. It was a whole lot of fun, and it's a good 2-hour movie, but they're not content with just playing the same gag over and over again. You might about an hour in go, is there really an hour left? And then they change things up again. I mean, they've put a lot of effort into keeping things fresh in this movie. I had a lot of fun. It's good. It's a fun way to close out the year. I'm not saying Star Wars isn't coming, but this is a fun way to close out the year.
Yep. So highly recommended from me. 8 out of 10, maybe even an 8.5.
I couldn't see myself giving it a 9, but I gave it 8 and highly recommended as well.
Yeah. So it's now
it opens this Friday, does it?
No,
when
Wednesday.
Open?
Wednesday.
Right.
Yeah.
Wednesday 11th it opens. So it was supposed to be Friday.
Go and see it then, I think.
Yeah, I think you should. You'd really enjoy it, Steve. I might even suggest you go and see it in IMAX. I think it would be a good experience. I saw it in 2D, but I think it looked really good on the big IMAX.
Well, it was certainly the treat of Christmas night 2017 compared to The Last Jedi, and I suspect it'll be the same case this year. So.
Yeah. Right, so like I say, that's coming out on the 11th, and our recommendation is go see it, take the family. Great little movie. Right, it's getting a bit silly now with Star Wars in terms of the marketing push, which means that they're not very, very sure about the movie.
It's not silly. It looks like desperation to me.
It does.
Doesn't it just feel like utter desperation that they're just doing all these sort of featurettes, banging on about how it's the end of the saga, without ever mentioning George Lucas, I have to say, which is bizarre. Well, this is his creation. But every time I see something now, I just think this.
I think I've seen the whole movie in all those TV spots and there's about 2 TV spots a day at the minute turning up on YouTube. It's getting silly at the minute.
I bet you haven't seen the whole of the horse scene. A lot of horses in this.
Space horses, that's what we need.
And you know what? Horses. You know what? I booked my ticket today.
I've already got my ticket booked, but I'm only going to see it because it's going to be a train wreck.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I've gone for an early afternoon showing on the 19th, so I'm not going to the midnight opening or anything like that. I'm going to see it in 2D, the big screen, but in 2D, so not the IMAX version, and we'll see how we go. If it's any good, I might upgrade and go and see it again in IMAX, but I'm not holding that much hope, because whenever you get this type of big marketing push behind anything, it usually means that they're not sure, and it's probably not going to do very well.
All things are relative, but yeah, I know what you're saying. What is depressing is there's an element of, as you say, am I looking forward to it? No. Is it actually going to be one of my incredibly infrequent visits to the cinema? Yeah, and that's incredibly depressing in its own way when I rationalise it like that. But it is what it is. So.
Again, there's this thing as well, though, that it's like The Mandalorian. I have not gone searching for that to watch it
I'm really
yet.
enjoying The Mandalorian.
But it's popping up everywhere. It's all over Twitter. It's all over Facebook. The Baby Yoda and all that.
Baby Yoda.
I know nothing about it, but it's everywhere. And I know that Star Wars is going to be the same, which is why I'm seeing it on opening day. I want to make up my own mind on opening day before things start to pollute via social media and all the rest of it, and talking to other people. So that's why I'm going to go and see it in opening day. I'm not expecting good things though. But then again, I think we've said right from the beginning, these are not for us, these films.
No, this is true, but I don't know. Sometimes they do appear to be hitting home at ways that we don't appreciate, but then other parts of it, I mean, as I understand it, in terms of toy sales and things like that, these are not a patch on. I mean, admittedly, they're up against, physical toys are up against competition from all manner of other things that obviously the originals weren't. But nevertheless, I don't think it has the ability to move units that some other.
No, merchandise-wise, these new films have been a massive failure in terms of merchandising. Not in terms of box office, but in terms of merchandising.
Yeah. It's not like they haven't been trying, though. I mean, they've been creating characters just so they could put toys out. Like what were those little blinking penguin porgs? I mean, what was the point of them other than selling cute little toys? This
is true, but I mean, let's face it, the only iconic toy object are the little BB-8 robot-y drone things from this trilogy so far. I don't think that's a particularly contentious thing to say. So no, as I say, with a sense of fatalism, I'm off to see it, and I'll see it sober. But nevertheless,
AVForums podcast listeners will be happy to know that there is no podcast for us to discuss this until at least January. So
we can do a spoiler-filled.
Absolutely,
rage.
Absolutely. I think we've got to do our CES one, and then the following one is where we'll go to town on it. So that'll be third week in January, folks.
A couple of people, incidentally, just want to remember, a couple of people have sent messages about why I'm not doing CES. Have I had a fallout or anything like that? No, I haven't. Let's be very clear about this. I think both Phil and Steve would agree pretty much wholeheartedly that in terms of my speciality interest for the forums, I'm rather better served in disappearing off to Munich to cover that than I am spending a forlorn afternoon wondering where all the hi-fi is at the Venetian. So it's an
confused old man.
I'm not the only confused old man at the Venetian. Let's leave it at that. But it's fair to say that CES has never truly been a hi-fi show, but the hi-fi contingent of it has
dwindled
died
away
on the vine.
Yeah,
so it's a very expensive way of me turning up to just do Saki hungover videos. It's not necessarily the greatest use of the resources available. So that's why, and you'll get all of the on message. TV information from Phil and Steve, unless they poison themselves again. I mean, I need to point out.
I'm not going either.
I thought you were. Oh no, okay, fine. I got confused.
You didn't go last year, right? Well, this year, sorry.
I know you didn't go this year. I thought you were going. No, I got confused.
But it actually worked really well this year in terms of coverage because the thing is, and we discovered this very early on, myself and Steve going every year. There's absolutely no point in you going to the press conferences if you want to do any coverage of them, because they're every 45 minutes, which gives you like 10 minutes to get to the next one. Sometimes the next one, the queue is round the block.
Well, they start queuing an hour before it starts. Yeah. So if you're in the previous one, there's no way you can make it to the one after.
So we discovered pretty early on that it was pointless doing the press conferences and so on. But I think last year it worked really well with Steve following the press conferences as they were happening, and him and Andy doing news pieces and all the core stuff that we do, which meant that myself being out there was far more flexible in terms of picking up stuff that was important to cover, the core wise, for TV wise, and interviews that people wanted, and so on. So yeah, that's why we're doing it the way that we're doing it, and it's no other reason than that. It'd be pretty pointless for three of us to go out there these days, because like every other show, the whole industry's kind of changing a little bit in terms of how things go. And Apple started it by separating out and doing their own thing, and Microsoft left 6 years ago. They do their own thing now. So
put it like this, it's an extremely expensive way of doing a video with three idiots standing in the desert. So amusing as that was, there's no higher reason than that. It's just practicality and resources.
Yeah, and we can go way off tangent on a podcast, which is far cheaper to do, like we have now. Right, so let's dial it back into where we should be. So discs released this week. Who wants to do this? Kaz?
Sure. So on 4K, we got 7 Worlds, 1 Planet, which I'm just halfway through at the moment. It looks absolutely stunning, and it's got Atmos too. I mean, no one's surprised it looks stunning, but it does. It looks stunning. And that's another fabulous BBC offering. David Attenborough, really good. And we got Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The review for that's already up. That also looks fabulous, nice and filmy, and native 4K. yeah, exactly. Which is, and it's nice that he holds on to that. But it's a good looking film. No Atmos, but it is what it is. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more second time round, and I've got a lot of time for it. I think it's.
I'm looking forward to seeing it a second time. So I'll be picking the disc up.
Very enjoyable. So that's on 4K. On Blu-ray, we've got both of those, as well as we've got Criterion's now Voyager, Dora and the Lost City of Gold, the entire Clint Eastwood collection. I can't even guess how many films were in it, but it's a stupid number of films.
How many good ones?
Stupid price.
I think on balance, there'd be enough that you'd probably at least look at it.
I would watch every single one of the movies.
Yeah, but you're not a normal Kaz.
Sure, I love Eastwood though. I've got a lot of time for Firefox and like Heartbreak Ridge. I'd watch all of those, really.
Firefox is funny. Steve was talking about his 80s films earlier. Firefox is a proper guilty pleasure film.
Yeah,
what was the one with the orangutan?
Every Which Way But Loose.
Yeah, there's 2 as well.
Or Any Which Way You Can.
Yeah, first. Something like that. Yeah. Anyway, I
those 2.
Time for all of those. Honky Tonk Man. Yeah, and 5 Dirty Harrys and a bunch of westerns.
Oh yeah, I think I actually considered walking out of Deadpool. It was such a bad film, but
yeah, but it's so bad it's good now. It's horrifically bad.
But Magnum Force is a properly good film, and Dirty Harry's a classic. So
yes, and you know what? I love that because Dirty Harry's great, but actually the second one, Magnum Force, does a good job of not retreading it like all the others do. All the others are just a retread of Dirty Harry. But I
quite enjoyed Magnum Force.
Yeah, the second one
turns the bad guy on its head very well.
That's and none of the others try and do anything different. They just get bigger guns and eventually a harpoon gun. But I mean, Magnum Force is quite a clever little thriller, and I like it.
It wasn't the harpoon gun. It was when he's being chased by the little toy car with a bomb on it that I nearly walked out.
But finishing someone off with a harpoon gun was great, though. I mean, like, the guy's got a pistol held on Dirty Harry, and he's got a harpoon gun, which will take a good few seconds to actually fire. But the guy's so stunned that he's going to get killed by a harpoon gun that he just stands there aghast until he's been suitably violated.
It's just part of a period where people just got off. It always reminds me a bit of is it Commando with Bennett being impaled on his pipe?
Let off some steam.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. Yep. Classic. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
What a film!
That's an Arrow special collector's set, and Blinded by the Lights, which
I really enjoyed.
Quite enjoyed, yeah. I just reviewed that. Streaming wise, we've got and got to see whether this is any good. We've got Netflix is doing Six Underground, which
wasn't that a Sneaker Pimps record?
Yeah, it was. Michael Bay and Ryan Reynolds.
$150 million budget.
Yeah, I cannot tell for the life of me what's going to happen. I mean, Ryan Reynolds immediately means it's going to be a jokey, the whole thing. Michael Bay immediately means it's going to be flashy, the whole thing. It could end up being a lot of fun, but the trailer and the poster look horrendous. They look really, really bad. So it'd be interesting to see whether they pull off a kind of a Netflix Bad Boys or whether it's just bad. But yeah, so streaming wise, we got that coming out.
Can I just very quickly say, did everyone see that Ryan Reynolds won the internet this week?
Yeah, it was fantastic.
No. That was right.
Absolutely brilliant.
Mark, should we start at the beginning? You know what Peloton is? This incredibly expensive exercise bike.
I saw the advert.
Yeah. So you've seen the advert. Well, you've got to assume that there's some level of fix involved in this, but nevertheless, Ryan Reynolds has got this weird gin brand which he now owns. They managed to get the actress from the Peloton advert into a relevant spoof gin advert incredibly quickly. And it's really, really good. It's most amusing, and I think that's why the gin brand is going up in value. Where apparently Peloton lost 987 million off its estimated stock.
They pulled a Rattler, I believe it's called in the business.
Well, I mean, obviously, as a practicing fat person, I mean, £2,000 for an exercise bike, which you then pay £40 a month to be shouted at by some twat in a leotard. I mean, the whole thing is a bit of a stretch for me, but nevertheless, well done to Ryan Reynolds. Nicely done. It's all on Tinternet if you need to have a look at it. So good.
So was his trailer for his new film as well. It was really
Yeah,
cool.
it is.
Oh, Free Guy. Or what it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, Free Guy. I'm not sure what to make of that either. I mean, he's definitely got typecast in these kind of I'm Ryan Reynolds in this movie roles, which is
particularly
fine.
in Hobbs and Shaw.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Which was a nice surprise, and he was funnier than both of the lead actors in that. But anyway, I'm not sure what to make of Free Guy. It looks a lot of fun, but again, a bit like Six Underground. It'll be interesting to see whether they actually pull this off. I'd stick with another Deadpool. That's what I'd be wanting for, another Deadpool.
Although the second one was so meta, so knowing, so tongue-in-cheek that I couldn't last the second viewing of it. First time round it was really, really entertaining, but it was so over the top that repeated viewing just didn't work.
Yeah, I can see that. Still, that first one's a charm, isn't it?
Oh yeah, first one's absolutely brilliant. Right, okay, I think we've covered movies and streaming. So where do we go from here?
Oh, no, sorry, one other thing.
All right.
You forgot to put on there, Kaz, but Friday is also season 4 of The Expanse.
Is this
Amazon.
Friday?
Yes.
Oh, my. Yes.
And I've just been rewatching seasons 1, 2, and 3, and it is fantastic. So looking forward to that.
Kaz has actually just sent a text message to his dealer asking for yet more amphetamine so he can stay awake to watch all of it.
Well, is it one of the ones where they're going to drop the whole thing in one go?
Yeah, because it's produced by Amazon.
Right, okay.
So when's this Friday?
Friday.
This Friday.
Good luck,
It's
Kaz.
going to be a world of pain. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that.
Hey, I don't make you do these things.
You've been
You do it
manfully
to
piling
yourself.
through all that Apple TV Plus stuff.
I have, yeah, and another one's dropped as well. There's a Octavia Spencer one which dropped. I don't know. There's not enough hours in the day or blood in my eyes, so.
But he's going to die trying. So
Yeah.
Did you watch Servant?
I have, yeah.
Any good?
I enjoyed it. I mean, it's Shyamalan, so nobody knows it's good until the episode
twist
10
ending.
twist, and then you're like, oh, really? So we'll see whether it is any good, but it's suitably odd.
I just watched Split. I bought the disc 2 years ago in Vegas.
Have you never seen Split before?
I just watched it this week. I've got the projector. I thought, oh, may as well watch it.
Did you know what the twist was at the end? Twist isn't really the right
Oh,
word.
spoilers.
No, I knew where it was going because obviously the third film's come out now. So
Right, okay. Well, that's a shame,
Oh, that's true, yeah.
because actually watching it without that knowledge is a whole
yes,
lot
I think it would have been a bigger impact. So I kind of knew it was going somewhere like that because obviously the third film.
Yeah, because none of the rest of the film is to do with it. So
and
actually,
it was fantastic.
No.
It was really. I mean, McAvoy in it is absolutely
Yeah,
brilliant.
he's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's superb, absolutely superb. But there you go. That's me catching up with a movie that's been out 4 years, 3 years.
Yeah, now you got to watch Glass.
There you go. Right, so let's talk sports. Steve came up with this one
Believe it or not.
as an idea to talk about, and I think it's relevant because obviously I've just signed up. I was telling everybody recently on the podcast to half price Sky, the Black Friday deal, which includes sports. And although my system doesn't get installed until the 17th of this month, I can watch it via the Sky Go app and AirPlay that to the TVs that I've got in for review at the minute. So I've been watching some content, especially sports TV, the football and so on. Especially American football, I forgot you get all the games. I can see me putting in some late nights over the playoffs. But anyway, the way that the Premier League games are carved up now, I believe they buy them in blocks now. So rather than buying up the whole thing, there's usually a bidding war for, I think it's 6 packages. And the packages include so many games through the season. And the way that it worked this time around was, I think Sky got... did Sky get 3? I think BT got 2. And the remaining one went to Amazon, of all people. I may have gotten the numbers wrong, but certainly Amazon bought a package. And the way that they've done it is that it's free to everybody that has Amazon Prime. Mm-hmm. And the way that they've done it, rather than showing one game a week or so on, they're using 2 weeks of this month. So the 3rd to the 5th was the midweek games, and then the next one is Boxing Day. So every game on Boxing Day and every game that was shown over the 3rd and the 5th, they've made available to Amazon Prime members. And I watched the Newcastle game because I forgot it was on the first 2 nights, and I managed to catch the 3rd night, and the quality was excellent.
Yes, I was impressed.
The quality was really, really good.
I mean, ignoring the football for a second, but no, the quality was. I mean, it's once again a reminder that Alan Shearer is not a glittering advert for 4K, but the the actual football itself, it all looked pretty good, I thought.
Was that HDR or just
no.
SDR?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, was that game up?
I didn't get an HDR flag.
It didn't come up as flagged as HDR.
Oh right.
Yeah.
Well, I know that they were showing games with 4K HDR though. You know.
Really? Okay. Well, I didn't.
Yeah. Well, Merseyside Derby was.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, that probably explains a lot. I didn't watch that.
Were you watching it in 4K? Because you only got to go and find it on Amazon.
No, I was watching it in 4K.
Yeah, it came up as 4K.
Yeah. And another great thing, if you want to go back and look at it, they keep all the replays there, which is very, very handy.
I think this might be putting. I'm sure this is just Amazon testing the waters. But if it's successful, I mean, they've got all the money, right? So,
well, I mean,
goodbye, Sky.
Well, there is a reason why I got a Sky package for the same money as I was paying BT just for my fibre internet and line rental. Yeah. Because it's not just Premiership Sports, but there's a number of Disney channels and movie channels on Sky that are going to disappear in March.
Disappear very soon, yeah.
So all that content's going to disappear off the platform. So you can see why Sky are pushing it at the moment. I mean, the deal I got was, I still scratching my head as to how they get it. So I get free line rental for 18 months. You get fibre broadband, same speed as I was getting from BT, so 75 meg, as well as the full Sky package in 4K UHD with a 1 terabyte box and the Sky broadband router for 65 quid a month.
Yeah, I mean, it's impressive, but I do occasionally find it interesting to watch people, talking, more in a political sense, bemoaning all massive influence of the Murdoch media. Every single activity I've seen from them over the last 2 years has just been a reminder that they are in categories which are diminishing day by day, and they are acutely aware of that. It's essentially the market has changed almost beyond recognition, and it's now a fight to stay relevant.
Absolutely.
Admittedly, I would say, we've touched on this before, if this ongoing content the fragmentation of available content continues apace, if there's anyone with the resources to start stapling it back together who isn't in themselves an enormous content generator with their own vested interests, it is Sky, but I don't know if they can do that yet. That will only be tested once everything's in play in the UK, and we'll see how things go from there.
I'll be honest. When I heard Amazon were getting it, I kind of scoffed slightly, but it now kind of almost feels slightly kind of antiquated to go back to like I use BT TV box and that kind of thing. Just it's working straight through your smart TV, and just the wealth of options they put there for replays and that kind of stuff. You've got highlights, you've got extended highlights, you can just watch the goals, you can watch the pre-match stuff. All this kind of thing is cut up perfectly for you. And also, something I've been banging on about for years, but the ability to turn off commentary. So if you've got Clive Tildesley and Andy Townsend on your stream, you can turn it off and just have the fan noise if you want. It's slightly odd, but it kind of
better than Clive Tilson.
Well, yes, but it kind of shows the way that if you can get these different options, it felt very much like Amazon were playing it safe, so that nothing too gimmicky. You know, they got pretty much your standard, you know, pundits and commentators there, but fairly diverse lineup. But you know, nothing too out of the ordinary. But it does feel like there's fertile ground there for them to go after, because it's almost like people have been taken for granted that whoever gets the package to show this stuff, people have to watch it anyway. You know, you have to sit through listening to Alan Shearer talking about, you know, hunger for like 10 times in a sentence, like he's doing some kind of famine relief advert, you know, and all of a sudden you look at it and you think, well, how is it then that like the BBC's NFL coverage is so good? You know, just taking something completely different, taking a different sport and looking at it slightly differently. And you realise that we've got stuck in the same ways of presenting our football.
Yeah,
this being said,
that's a really good point.
This being
the
said,
NFL.
Amazon did manage to keep something going on that drives my father absolutely mad, and I would be very disappointed if they stopped doing it for that reason. My dad is infuriated that there are big games, massive games, and huge games, depending on who's talking about it. And for whatever reason, this really infuriates him, because he feels that should be in some way a gradated scale between big, massive, and huge. They were. I was pleased to see that in the commentary on Amazon in the half time and so on and so forth, they were still using it interchangeably. So he was still infuriated by it, which is very satisfying.
But yeah, it's an interesting point you raised there, Mark, about how it's presented, because the whole reason that Sky took off was that they didn't just take the football games and show them how they'd always been seen. They actually brought new technology. They brought the very slow rate phantom cameras for doing the really slow replays and all that kind of thing. The 30 different camera angles on a game. I mean, you go back to how it was presented on Match of the Day, with maybe one or two cameras at every ground, with the same wide shot and maybe a close-up if you were lucky. The way that they completely changed and Americanized it, basically. They looked at how the NFL was presented, how the NBA was presented, and applied that to the Premier League. And they changed the way that football's seen now. I mean, we would find it very, very strange to go back to how things used to be back in the 80s.
If you've ever watched the Goal Show on BT Sport, where they're all sat there and they're obviously watching, you know, the games, but they don't have the rights to the footage to show it then. And so then when they say, let's have a little look at how that goal was scored, and then they just have this like 2D pitch and say it went to him and then it went to the goal, and it's a little arrow, and it's like the early days of Football Manager and that kind of thing. But yeah, as you say, it kind of goes hand in hand when Sky kind of really kind of drove things forwards with that technology, and it feels like we're kind of on the cusp of something else. Something's going to come along. Yeah,
and it's interesting that although Sky is still a satellite service, that is going to change, and you can see that the infrastructure is being put in place for that to change. Because I believe that the mini boxes are now done. They're not connected they're connected to the main box, not the satellite dish, like the old extra boxes that you used to get and so on. And the way that a lot of the interface is completely changed. I mean, I only got rid of my Sky maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and going back to it now just through the app, it's completely different in terms of the box sets and everything else that's there, and the way it's all sorted out for you, the UI interface, the Sky Q and all the rest of it. So a lot of work's gone into that as well. So I think what Amazon have done is basically
they're well aware that it's adapt or die. And it's good. I mean, obviously it's in some ways it's also refreshing that we're being positive about the Amazon experience, because let's face it, far too often we find ourselves, I mean, their app in its, you know, embedded form is still at times just willfully infuriating.
So many aspects, the hell out of me.
So many aspects of it just appear to be deliberately there to just make you cross. But nevertheless, no, I agree with Mark. I think they did a strong job with this opening gambit.
Yeah, and they also, I just say, get kudos as well, because for a company that's kind of seen as one that just throws money at a problem, they didn't go out and build the world's biggest set or anything like that. They actually followed this idea that, in fact, if you talk pitch side or you're up in just a little commentary booth, that's good enough. You know, BT, when they went down this route, decided to build like their own little, like a fortress of solitude or something to house Rio Ferdinand in and Gary Lineker, and it just sucks all the atmosphere out of it. Just this huge swathe of empty space, and three men saying the same things.
Did you not go at the opening of that, Steve?
I did, yeah.
The BT Studios.
Massive studios complex with all technology and everything. I met, what's his face? Jake Humphrey. Jake Humphreys, yes. Yeah. Very nice bloke. I did. I saw all that. It was interesting. They had like a whole area, green screen area for when they were doing, because they would have massive. It was a huge space anyway, but they would like have the commentators in the front, and then this massive area where they could CGI in anything they wanted. It was impressive.
But I mean, it must be said, obviously, this move to IPTV, it leaves limitless scope. I mean, you could have, sooner or later, the same way, obviously, with the Dolby, with the multiple commentary options, which I'm also looking forward to. Obviously, they made it a good move with the crowd noise, but maybe we can move to doing things like having retro 80s graphics. And stuff like that, just to make things somehow more whimsical, and it doesn't cost them anything, or it's not something that's chewing up a limited stream of information.
You're going to be able to change the commentary like you can do your sat nav, so I can have 80s John Motson. Marvelous.
Well, the technology obviously is so advanced that they probably can do that now. It's really interesting. And it was a good point you made as well about the NFL on the BBC, Mark, because I think they've absolutely nailed that. Now, they've got some very, very knowledgeable but very, very funny people involved. And I actually enjoy watching it more for the fact that some of the humour is absolutely brilliant.
I was going to say this, so personable and that kind of thing. And, I mean, it helps that, should we say, NFL players have to go through a college system and ours largely drop out of school. So, it kind of helps there. But yeah, they've got personable people on. And to be fair to Amazon, they kind of pushed Peter Crouch quite well. And he's one of the few kind of ex-footballers who genuinely is quite funny.
Yeah, and I think that's what it needs. It needs that personality, doesn't it? It needs the humour and so on, rather than being really sort of bland and serious and which you tend to get from other presentations.
Not necessarily participating in at a professional level, but watching professional sport of any description is supposed to be something that we do to unwind. So, taking it incredibly seriously never gels terribly well.
But this goes hand in hand with this whole idea. I mean, it's kind of started with the whole kind of Super Saturday idea of every game is the biggest game of the season.
Well, do you remember that Mitchell & Webb sketch? Did you ever see that?
That doesn't really narrow it down.
There's a Mitchell & Webb sketch where David Mitchell is wandering around. It's perfectly judged as the old Sky adverts. He's wandering around a football stadium, and it's like, each minute seemingly more important than the last. The football is going on forever, and so on and so forth. I'll dig it out so it can be put in the comments. But it perfectly encapsulates the fact that all of a sudden this was apparently more important than life itself, and I'm well aware what Bill Shankly said, but I fundamentally disagree with him. So I welcome a return to levity about these things, what is fundamentally a game.
And for the final word on this, we'll go to our sports correspondent, Kaz.
You've fallen asleep.
Yeah,
I bet if you released it as a box set, you'd watch it.
Yeah, no, I don't do sport.
That's a good job, because
I would not have any hours left in the day if I did. But I've always tried to get into it from every way I can. But it's never. I've always been surrounded by people who know far too much about it, and are just appalled that I don't. So I don't.
Is that why your father stopped talking to you?
None of my family were ever into football, ever into sport. My dad loves cricket, but I wasn't. I played it, but I wouldn't watch it because it goes on for like 3 years.
I don't think the idea of watching cricket on the telly, I know modern commentary and coverage is excellent, but cricket is either, in terms of enjoying it, it's either something you play, have on the radio in the background, which is not in itself about the cricket. It's just, if you like an enormous Alan Bennett play, or you go and watch it for real and get drunk in the sun. Or
the fourth option is you don't understand it and have no interest in it.
Well, you're talking to me about the NFL, so I mean, frankly, you don't have a leg to stand on.
It's got a point there.
So yeah, I think that needs to be taken with at the very least, cricket. If it's a nice sunny day, you just get wrecked.
Cricket is like a posh drinking game.
That makes perfect sense now, Ed, that you've explained it that way.
Well, yeah, fundamentally. I mean, it's disappointing in so many ways that the professionalism of all these sports precludes them being played drunk as well. But, that's by the by.
Right, so anyway, we're now getting into feature length of time again on the podcast. So we need to wrap it up. Like I say, next week is our final podcast of 2019. So we're back again on January the 13th for our CES podcast special. So we'll be wrapping up on the week from CES. I get back on the Sunday. We'll have the podcast out. It'll probably be later on the Monday, but keep your eyes open for that. And then we're back to recording the podcast at the usual times for Monday release. But that's it for this week. My thanks to Steve Withers.
Am I still black?
Ed Selley.
Cake, isn't that your weakness?
Kaz Harlow.
The fact that I'm not Instagramming this right now is insane.
And Mark Botwright.
Maybe we're all in a coma.
Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Bookmark AVForums.com for latest reviews, news and videos. Plus, why not leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes, but only if you enjoyed the show. Also, head over and check out our YouTube channel for videos of the latest product launches and reviews and CES. And while you're there, feel free to subscribe. I'm Phil Hinton. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you again for our end of year Christmas party episode next week.